I'm in the middle of undergoing an interesting experiment, which is crazy idea, trying to behave exactly as I do in front of the people who know me as I do on the internet. And it's a very interesting experience, I have to say. I've spoken about a number of times on this channel that since I started making videos as Tash Teaches back in 2020, I would start to get overwhelmed by the nature of how I would behave on camera. Because I think by accident I had sort of created this archetype of the Tash Teacher's kind of quirky, eccentric guru, which, to be fair, isn't too far away from sort of how I behave in real life. I definitely don't behave like a guru to my friends. I think that's something that just comes with the experience of me being able to talk at a camera and you not being able to talk back at me. But it's definitely a very interesting experience seeing how you feel talking to a camera. I don't know how many of you guys have your own YouTube channels or whatever it is, any form of place where you are delivering content to the masses, but it is a uniquely bizarre headfuck to create content. And I think that the thing that has most readily proven itself over these past few years is that trying to be yourself leads you very, very, very far away from actually being yourself. So the experiment that I am undergoing of trying to behave as I do is oscillating back and forth between being rather successful on some days and other days being really quite difficult. You know, I went through a phase over the past 2-3 weeks or so where I was putting out a video every single day, and I've actually been struggling a little bit with that over the past week or so. And sure, we could say the fact that it's like, okay, well, you don't need to make a video every day. You don't have enough thoughts and unique perspectives to warrant such a thing. But my experiment wasn't about trying to create really interesting, meaningful content that, my experiment was about trying to see what happened if I let myself be unfiltered on the interwebs. And depending on the mood I was in, and I'm actually starting to suspect as well, depending on how much I'd eaten that day, if I hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch, it actually made it very difficult to make videos. I would sit down, quite like I am right now, just talking, waxing poetic, and I would just stumble, and I would start to then doubt whether I could continue, and I would start these videos. And the irony of it as well is that I wanted to make these videos where I didn't necessarily speak perfectly. I would stumble and I would then get back on the horse and continue my train of thought. But I would make one error, one strange little error that, maybe I would brain, like right then, I just did it then. I wouldn't perfectly enunciate a word. And this inner critic would just come up and it'd be like, you need to end that. You need to stop it and start it again. And there would also be this feeling of the fact that, oh, but you've done a lot of great things. You've said like a lot of very neatly, smartly worded things. So I would then try and record the video again and organically repeat or, create the appearance of organically saying the things that had worked last time. And of course, maybe I also just need to add on here as well that the experiment that I'm doing isn't just behaving like myself, which is very, very strange. It's trying not to even edit things, trying not to even put a cut in. But I have noticed one thing, apart from the fact that I've been getting just a huge amount more engagement on my content. People have been engaging with the content far more than they ever did in the past. And, we could also argue the fact that it's because I'm reaching a wider audience with making videos about why you don't need social media to succeed as an artist. But I think one of the things that seems to be presenting itself when I upload these videos is just how much people are opening up and engaging with me in the comments. It's more common now for people to write a far thicker comment than perhaps in the past where they would say, great vid, or whatever. Now people are actually opening up and sharing their viewpoints, asking questions and engaging with each other in the comments, which I think is potentially quite a good sign that the videos that I'm making, these more unedited, ideally authentic representations of how I behave, that they are sparking more conversations. I just had a pretty interesting 30-minute call with a chap by the name of Danny Suede, tremendous name that. And he is a gentleman who has been making some very finely produced pop music. But we jumped on and he's got a YouTube channel, he's making music, he's writing on Substack, and he is doing some other stuff, some cool stuff too. And when I searched for him to check out what he was doing online, he put that he is a retired social media user. And it's funny because about 2-ish years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, some of you actually may even remember that I came on here, I think wearing probably this very same outfit. And I had a sty at the time, which I now know is probably linked to the emotions that I was processing in the lead up to that video. But I came on and I made a video entitled, like, I'm leaving social media, I'm getting out of here, like I'm whatever. And I even held a microphone, which just made it feel like, I was really declaring it. But I was talking, maybe it was just on Instagram, I was talking about how the fact that I was just done servicing the algorithm. I was done creating content to maybe appeal to somebody so that maybe they would click. And it just felt super disheartening. I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced this too, where, you jump onto YouTube or Instagram or, God forbid, TikTok with the intention of creating stuff and having fun, creating and sharing, and finding that the stuff that you're making just isn't maybe connecting as well as you'd like it to. But then you see content that it's very easy to sort of piss on and say like, well, this is, let's be real, shit. This is shit content, and it's just got hundreds of thousands of views. And you start to question like, well, is there even a place for the things that I choose to make? And you do that for long enough, you create enough stuff from the heart that you share that doesn't connect in the way that you think it ought to, then it can become very disheartening. So anyway, I found myself in a place about 2 and a bit years ago where I very much was just all petty and angry, and I declared that was it. I was leaving. I was going away from the social media space. And if people wanted to connect with me, they had to join my mailing list. And this is also a funny thing, because in those days I had a mailing list and I literally wouldn't email people ever. I just made this mailing list, and I think partly I was afraid that they would unsubscribe, which is nuts. Any of you guys who have a mailing list and you are not emailing people, do not let a reason that you don't send emails be that you're afraid people will unsubscribe. That is good. It is a good sign. It means we are pruning the people who have no interest in hearing from you. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Anyways, now I'm far better at getting people to unsubscribe. Thank you so much for being a member of my mailing list for the period of time that you were. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So for that period of time, I decided I was going to deactivate my Instagram. I wasn't going to post on Facebook. I don't really post on Facebook at all anymore anyway. And I think on YouTube, I also kind of just took a break because I didn't want to have to make what the algorithm was telling me to make. In fact, the video in question, I think, would be kind of fun to watch because I think I do still have it posted on here. I'm wondering if I can just quite easily just play it at the same time. Here, let me see if I can scroll down and find it. I was going through a period of time where I was actually quite angry about a lot of things.
Since my video a few months ago, in which I talked about the head that is navigating the use of social media these days, I've had a lot of time to think about what I really believe in, and as such am willing to contribute my dwindling life force towards moving forwards. I find it immeasurably difficult to justify giving up so much of my finite reserve of attention and focus, simply to feed a system that is fundamentally built to addict us, to make us feel lesser, to make us strive to be not who we know ourselves to be, but who we are algorithmically told we should be in order to succeed on each individual platform. I don't want to fight for your attention anymore. To have to find the latest methods of hooking you in with clickbait, keyword-friendly titles, or purposefully misleading thumbnails. I'm done playing catch-up with the latest gatekeeping algorithms designed to keep us on their platforms, always wanting more. I don't want to have to distract you any more than we're already being distracted by the never-ending and all-consuming mediated realities that compete for our precious mind power every second of our waking lives these days. What I do want is to connect with my fans directly, to build a space for those who are truly interested in what I have to say and share, to hear from me free from the distortions of social media. I want to offer to those who really choose to pay me their attention to have the chance to engage with me on a more human level, without the meddling of countless lines of code that must constantly observe your and my behaviour in order to tell us what we want, and when we want it. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. Not just of being ruled by the tools that we're told we depend upon, simply to exist in the modern world, but tired of justifying to myself all those stolen hours of my daily life that I will never get back, simply because that's the way things are now. I want to use my attention like the truly priceless resource that it is to feed only the people, projects, concepts and ideas that I truly believe in. I do not want to be advertised to any more than I must simply by having eyes in the real world. So I must now ask you, do you actually care about the things that I make and have to say? No hard feelings if not. Truly I applaud your clarity and your honesty. You decide what you care about, and I would never wish to infringe upon that freedom. But if in your heart you know that you do care, and you do want to stay in touch with me and my ideas, then I would like for you to sign up for my rather vintage email. You can find a link to it in my bio and my latest story highlight. I will email at most twice a month, and I promise not to waste your time and focus with anything that I do not absolutely feel will either warm your heart or tickle your mind. Never forget the power that you have to shape the world of data that you find yourself so immersed in. Remember that you are the ultimate gatekeeper of your attention, your focus, and the ideas that you let in to design your reality.
I was going through this period of my life where I felt like I was imprisoned. I was held back from the success that I thought that I deserved in music and, let's be real here, particularly music. And I had all sorts of stories about why I wasn't where I needed to be. And, I blamed the record industry. I blamed the streaming platforms. I blamed managers and agents who either worked with me and failed me or didn't know about working with me and all this kind of shit. And it led to having a really negative outlook on life in general, because my life is music, my life is creating, my life is, dare I say it, content. Even though I'm not talking about social media content, I'm just talking about the creation of things that I then wish to share with the world. When your view of creativity is just sort of pigeonholed into the fact that you are just this worthless slave, and the fact that the things that you want to make don't matter if the algorithms don't value it, you start to really suffer. And why I'm saying all of this is, if we now bring this back to the original point about making content that just, it feels indistinguishable to me than how I would behave if somebody were to sit here and listen to me rant for 20 minutes, is it feels really cathartic. It feels really good. Asterisk there, on the days that it doesn't feel good are the days when I think that I'm trying to create content to satisfy the algorithm. Once again, and the irony is the fact that I saw that the algorithm liked my unfiltered, rambly video posts. Therefore, I tried to create that. And I think that's it. Like, I'm speaking it out loud, but I think that is the essence. Is like when I sit down and I try and create one of these very videos, and like the trying. I mean, it's so interesting. I've been reading a fantastic book recently called Reality Transurfing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it was this quantum mechanics researcher called Vadim, what's his name? Vadim Reality, let's see. His name's Vadim Zeland, and I think he's a Russian dude, but he came up with this concept called reality transurfing, which is just his approach to what a lot of, mystical traditions, a lot of different self-help situations and all that kind of shit. He calls it a reality management system. But the particular language he uses to describe these tools really, really appeals to me. And if by any means you're interested in the concepts of manifestation, or even if you'd like to come at it from a slightly more grounded and, should we say, scientific approach, he has a really, really tremendous way of describing the human experience and our struggles and our strife. And one of the things that really has been speaking volumes to me lately is the nature of importance, and like how putting too much importance on something to go well usually means that it won't go well. And he describes it as the fact that when you put too much into something having to be a certain way, you create all of this excess potential, which just is bound to go wrong. I'm not going to dive too much into the specifics of how he words it, but long story short, I've just found that when I try and create things that are good, they don't end up being good. Although when I allow myself to just be, when I allow myself to just talk, or in the sense of creating music, if I just allow myself to explore, the things that end up appearing are just magical. You know, I like to think of music as less of a thing that we do and more of a thing that we notice, that we allow to come into our sphere. I lived for a number of years in Laurel Canyon, beautiful place in the West Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles. And for the past few years of living there, shortly before coming here, one of my housemates had his great-grandmother's baby grand piano in the living room, and it just looked out over the hills. If any of you guys have ever been to the hills of Los Angeles, you will understand that there is a certain magic, there is a certain charm beyond all of the bullshit celebrity culture. There is just a delicious je ne sais quoi about the Los Angeles hills, particularly at sunset. And I would play this game with myself where I would sit down at the piano and I would often contort my fingers into some sort of shape that could probably, or should we say, should intentionally not allow me to play anything that I have played before on the piano. And I would just strike a few keys. And the goal was not to play something. It was not to sit down and make something happen, but it was instead to be present for the music. What I mean by that is I would sit there, and whatever happened, I would listen to it. And when you listen so deeply to music, if you pick up a guitar, you play the piano, whatever, when you listen rather than trying to talk with that instrument, it's almost as if like your fingers move of their own accord. And the way that I like to visualize it is that at any given moment, what you play is the only thing you could have played. It's not as if like, oh, when I sit down and I play something that feels a bit bluesy, like I could have played something jazzy. The reason why I played what I played is because of what was happening in the exact time and space as I am right now. I like to envision it, the fact that up, down, left, right, forward, and back, all just filling up all of the space is a continuous wave, just a total wave of some form of energy, should we say. And when we play music, and when we play music well, when we allow the music to play through us, all we're really doing is we are bringing sonic manifestation. We are bringing into reality the experience of music that is moving through that space at that moment. And so when I would sit down at this piano, I would not play a thing. I would let whatever was moving through move through me. And I approach production exactly the same way, is that any time that I sit down and make something, and I make something truly meaningful and magical, it's not because I intended to do so. It's because I allowed a particular noticing, a particular awareness of a sensation to come through me in the software. Anyway, this is a really, really long video now of what originally was just meant to be a point of the fact that it's quite strange being yourself online. I think I even had a video about that. But I just want to wrap this up with a brief message, which is that if in any ways you are curious about perhaps sharing yourself, your views, your feelings, the things that you create on the internet, let this be permission to do so. It's really a tremendous experience that's teaching me so much about myself. And I'm actually really grateful for the ability to make this kind of content, to be able to share this with the world, because it just makes me realize what it is that I truly stand for. What are the things that I am willing to be held accountable for saying on the interwebs. So, wishing you all the best. Happy fucking Tuesday and happy creating.